What's up, family? I appreciate everybody stopped by to watch this video. Again, this is a nice live. Now, before I even get into this video, it's a long video. But NASA Artemis had tweeted this out. The future of deep space exploration is within view. We are the new pioneers. We are the new future billionaires into this space because what you came here for is for financial freedom. So before I even get into this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share this around to your community.
Into the universe. We will most certainly need a multiplanetary currency, a fair currency that represents us all. That currency is Dogelon Mars. We are the Dogelon Warriors, a group of dedicated individuals who aim to assist and propel humanity into the next era. Join us on our mission to make Dogelon Mars the currency of the future, and welcome to the Dogelon space. I am co-hosting right now with Glacier, Crypto Brown, and Charlene. Thank you very much for joining. We have a special guest, Dane Gobel. We've had him before in our space. He introduced himself back then as well. But Dane, for the people that do not know you, would you like to give a short introduction?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me back. I'm Dane. I'm the co-founder of Methuselah Foundation and a proud Dogelon holder. And I work on the Deep Space Food Challenge most of the time, aside from some of the other projects that I do for Methuselah.
Yeah, you're quite a busy man, I hear. So, can you tell us about what your relation is to the Deep Space Food Challenge?
Sure. So basically, NASA came to us towards the end of 2019, or is it no? Sorry, towards the end of 2020, about the Deep Space Food Challenge. We had worked with them before on the Vascular Tissue Challenge, which you guys may have heard of, but it was about kind of breaking down one of the key rate limiters in organ engineering and whole organ engineering, which is microvasculature. And so we did a challenge with NASA related to that, and then they came to us a few years later about this really interesting food challenge. And so I, at the time, was actually working on bootstrapping a little VR startup that I was working on, but the opportunity was so cool, I couldn't resist. So my wife and I, who actually she works for Johnson & Johnson in her day job, managed to fill out or open up some time so that we could work on the food challenge, which is it's just incredibly cool, and we're just so happy that so many people have been able to participate in the challenge. But we'll get into that more.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was just thinking about how the NASA asked the Methuselah Foundation about this food challenge, right? So I was just thinking about, could you go a little bit deeper into the origin story of that, how that went, and how you guys went about it?
Yeah, sure. So the origin story from before we were involved was the director of the ISS, Robin Gatens, and Monzi Roman, who is the head of Centennial Challenges at the time, were essentially they were seeing the work that was being done there, around space food. There were some really interesting papers that were being worked on by some NASA scientists who also work with the Institute of Food Technologists. These are incredibly smart people, mostly women actually, who were publishing some really, really interesting studies about nutrient degradation, in particular in space. And so seeing what was coming down the road in terms of the Artemis missions, the plan to actually go back to the lunar surface and have astronauts there on a permanent basis. I mean, cycling basis. People won't live there for probably more than a month at a time, let's say, but they'll be cycling there. The current paradigm of shelf-stable foods just is simply not viable for that, or for a Martian mission. It's just not really going to work. I can get more into that later, but that was the problem that they realized that they needed to solve. And so NASA has Centennial Challenges, which is their one of their open innovation platforms, I guess you could say. And so they worked with different subject matter experts to pull together a structure for people to participate in trying to solve that problem. So, everybody from, people who are at universities, different institutions like that, to startups, to kind of like garage warriors, to, really almost anybody. They put together a really amazing challenge, which was designed to be as open and inclusive as possible. It was for phase one. I can get more into this later, but phase one was a design challenge, so it did not require probably a great deal of money to actually be involved in, since you didn't have to make a prototype. So that's what they started to put together, and yeah, again, it's all in anticipation of the missions that NASA is going to be doing in the near future, and of course, everybody in private space is going to run into similar problems as well, and of course, we have lots of problems back home with food security. So these are all of these things are interrelated, and if you can solve the problems for people going to the moon and going to Mars and living on the lunar surface, or eventually living on the Martian surface, those problems are much more complicated than the ones back home, quite frankly. We have far more resources than they do out there. So if you can solve the problems out there and make it economical and bring it back home, you can solve a lot of problems back here. And so the origin story, as far as how we got involved, originally they had another partner in line, a university, but that university had to drop out. They decided to drop out when they realized that they weren't going to get paid, so which makes sense. And so they came to us and said, "Please help us out with this," and we said, "Okay," because it was something that is totally on mission for what we're all about, and yeah, and so that's the short story, or the long-winded short story.
So I'm just doing a verify here because for the last minute you broke up for me last year. Is that just me, or was it Dane's connection there?
No, that was just you. I could hear you fine, Dane.
Okay, that's good. I'm just verifying just in case. It sounds amazing how you got approached by NASA themselves, right? So that also means that you guys have a very good relationship with NASA.
Yeah, we've been working with them for several years now, and it looks like things are only getting more interesting. So, yeah, we're very happy to have a relationship with NASA and with CASIS, the national lab at the ISS.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really awesome. So, go back to the Deep Space Food Challenge. It's now in the second phase, and could you explain to us what the difference is between phase one and phase two?
Sure. So the main difference is the fact that in phase two, teams are actually required to build prototypes. So phase one was somewhat similar to a grant application, and then phase two is full-on prototype. So a lot of teams in phase one did have prototypes in progress, or already had prototypes or even production-ready models that were able to produce food. And so those teams do have a head start on some of the other teams, because it just happened to be that they were already in that part of the industry. But for phase two, yeah, all teams now are going to be building prototypes that have to produce actual food samples that are safe, they don't kill you, and they're nutritious, and have a lot of variety in terms of what they can produce. So those are the main differences, I would say, in terms of what the high-level criteria is. Most of the actual design constraints are largely the same. They're a little bit more aggressive in phase two. Of course, as time goes on, things can get a little bit more specific, understanding what the future mission requirements will be. So there are some differences in that department. The other differences relate to probably the overall structure and the timeline of the challenge. So the first challenge, there was a really, really long open registration period. It was almost like 6 months, because we really were trying to cast a really wide net. We really wanted to make sure that we captured a lot of folks. And so gratefully that did happen. We had in phase one, we ended up with a kind of bonkers number of teams. It was like 250 or something insane. And then we ended up with almost 200 actual complete applications, which is a lot. That's way, 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 way more than usual. And so it was difficult to actually go through and even have enough judges to judge the challenge. We ended up with almost 50 judges, which is kind of unheard of for a challenge like this. So phase 2, though, is much more, now that we've actually done some down selecting, from those first phase 1 winners, which you could almost call like semi-finalists for phase 2. Now that we're in phase 2, those guys are going to do what they're going to do, and it becomes much easier to understand what the scope of the challenge will actually be, because we're going to know the teams, we're going to understand the technology that they're bringing more clearly because we already have those designs, and so it's going to be a lot easier to structure the judging process around them. Of course, the judging process is probably more, I guess you could say, rigorous or more easily definable than phase 1, because in phase 2, they are actually going to have to evaluate real prototypes with, everything being, totally, quantified. Everything's going to be measurable and much more standardized versus kind of aspirational, open-minded kind of design philosophy from the first one. So I think hopefully that answers your question. There's probably more to it, but it's basically like that. Yeah, in December, we're going to down select to I think it's basically, oh gosh, I'm probably going to get this number wrong, but I think it's 10 U.S. teams and then 5 international teams. I hope I got that right. As semifinalists for phase 2, and then we'll actually go and have judges test the actual food samples, and then we'll finally down select to up to 3 international teams and up to 5 U.S. teams. So the challenge is going to be getting much more focused towards the end of the cycle. But I also do think that there's always going to be like a lot of fantastic work that comes out of it, even if it's not a home run necessarily for what NASA is looking for. The companies and teams that come out of this process are going to have absolutely incredible products that they can go and get investment in and bring that technology to Earth, or take it to other people in the space world.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I have a question to that. The teams, are those universities, companies, and like private individuals, or how does that work?
Hey folks, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Did you by any chance hear Glacier's question?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I guess Dane is not hearing me. Maybe you can repeat it, Sergeant.
So Dane, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's very interesting, because Glacier is speaking in the space, but you don't hear him, but other people hear him. So I don't know what that is, but
Yeah.
he basically asked, who are the contestants in this challenge? Are those companies, private individuals, universities? What are we talking about? What kind of people are these?
Oh, I mean, they're very serious folks, mostly. I would say that there are some people who are a little less established in the industry, maybe, but the vast majority of them are very, very, very well-established folks at universities and very serious startups. So we've been very, very, very happy to see the incredible cross-disciplinary collaboration that happens both where you see that happening at universities, where just maybe people with different departments, but also different companies within the private sector in the space industry working together to solve these problems. So it's really incredibly cool to just see happening. Lots of absolutely fantastic folks, and you can see well, I think we might talk about this later, but you can look at the winners of the challenge on the website. deepspacefoodchallenge.org/winners to get a little bit of a taste of the kind of folks that are involved and what they're about, the kind of work that they've been doing.
So we have multiple winners, right?
Yeah, that's right. We had 18. Let's see. So on the Canadian side, they have 10 winners for phase one. The U.S. competition had 18 winners for phase one, and on the international side, there were 10 winners for phase one.
And what were the reasons why they won? What made them better than the other ones?
Sure. So it's really their ability to both adhere to the criteria, the constraints, and the criteria of the challenge. So it's like I mentioned before, it's incredibly technical work that they're doing. It's about as hard as it gets. I mean, if you think about it, this is the food equivalent of rocket science. You know, this is food plus astrophysics. This is super complicated stuff. And so they were judged on their ability to have very efficient inputs and outputs. So the first thing that you want is you're trying to minimize the amount of mass that you're taking up relative to the amount of food that's actually produced. So you want, I mean, you don't necessarily have to have it, but it's pretty much going to be a closed loop system where everything that is going into the machine and that's coming out of the machine is in one way or the other, as much as possible, going to be recycled back into the machine. So the ISS itself and, future space, missions, right? They're all going to have probably similar technology in terms of water recapture and that sort of thing. So contestants or competitors didn't have to worry about some of those technical requirements because it's kind of, implicitly going to be available to them. But on the food side, yeah, it's inputs, extremely efficient inputs and outputs. It had to fill pretty much the entire. It didn't have to fill the nutritional requirements entirely for a crew of 4, but it's pretty close to that. So it's supposed to fill food gaps, but as much as possible address all of the caloric and nutritional requirements for a crew of 4 for a mission of 3 years. So that's a heck of a lot of calories. It's a long mission to Mars. It takes a long time to get there, and so yeah, it has to be extremely efficient, input and output. It has to be safe, right? It has to be free of pathogens. So you think about shelf-stable food. A lot of times it's irradiated to remove any potential pathogens because it has to last a long time. But you have a similar situation if you're growing your food in the craft. It has to be pathogen-free. It has to be acceptable. So that's a technical term. It sounds kind of like boring, but it's actually, it's a technical term, or prosaic, but it's a technical term, which means it has to be, it basically means palatable. So it means that on a hedonic scale, it has to reach a certain criteria for it to be judged by professional food technologists as something that a human being would want to eat and not get really depressed eating for a while. So it has to be acceptable from a palatability standpoint, and then the actual technology itself has to be acceptable from a user experience perspective. So astronauts are extremely busy people. They have basically no spare time. So they don't have any time to fix broken equipment. They don't have, or have very little time to fix broken equipment or perform maintenance on, equipment that's a pain to use or that's a pain to clean or, that sort of thing. So the more that the competitors were able to produce something that was extremely efficient, created a variety of different types of highly nutritious, delicious food that was good for astronaut psychology, and that the actual process of preparing the food, maintaining the equipment, just basically didn't take a lot of time, the higher that they were going to score. Also, they were judged on, this is a little bit of a wild category, but just a subjective level of innovation. Is this something that has been done 100 times before and is maybe just like a minor improvement, or is this something that really is, potentially a game changer? So they were judged on that, and then they were also judged on the terrestrial potential for terrestrial application. So there's, maybe some of you guys are familiar with the term food deserts, but it's basically a place on the planet Earth where even if maybe you can grow some food, it's really, really difficult for supply chains to get food to you, and so you end up with grocery stores that are packed with foods that are basically unhealthy but are relatively cheap. So it's a great way to have maybe an abundance of food, but it's bad for you. Or places on Earth, of course, just like have food scarcity for a variety of different reasons, whether it's economic or just happens to be a place that's not easy to grow food. And so we were also very interested in technology that could be adapted for Earth in those circumstances, especially Canada in particular. They were really interested in that because they have a large First Nations population who are in that very situation, and it would help those people out quite a lot in the Canadian North. So a heck of a lot of space in Canada where there's not a lot of people, but there are some people. Those people have a hard time getting food. So I think that's most of it. There's probably other stuff I'm forgetting, but that's the big stuff. Except for like the 5 big things I'm forgetting right now, but yeah.
That sounds very, very interesting. I do have to say it goes a little bit above my head. It is, it goes very far with the recycling every little bit inside the space station or the rocket, wherever, how we're going to colonize a place in the universe. So I can imagine that some people have some questions about that later on in a section. We will have another question section, and I'm not sure if you will be there, Dane. We didn't discuss that, but I do imagine people will have some questions just about all what you just said. But
for sure,
I would like to ask you something, and it is about 6 months ago that we saw tweets coming by about an experiment of the Deep Space Food Challenge possibly being shot into space and to be worked on in a lab on the ISS. And I would like to ask you if that is really, really true.
Oh, it's super close to that. It's actually, that was for the Vascular Tissue Challenge. So we are, and because of the generous donations of the Dogelon community, it's actually going to be going up to the ISS. So some of the work from Wake Forest for the Vascular Tissue Challenge is indeed going to be going up to the ISS. It's going to take, unfortunately, longer than we would have liked, just because of the way that the space works, especially space bureaucracy can get a little complicated sometimes. So it will probably take, it looks like it's going to be late 2023 or something along those lines. It's really impossible to say exactly. But it's all, everything's set up and it's going to be happening. Personally, I can't wait to actually have every single box checked so we can know exactly when it's going to happen. But it is, because of the nature of the industry, it is taking a little bit longer than we would like. But the work is very cool, though. We can't wait to see what it'll do. There's amazing stuff that you can do in microgravity, especially with organ research. So we can't wait to actually see their work validated and tested out in a microgravity environment. It's going to be amazing.
So do you think that will happen in like the next 6 months or more like a year?
Probably, yeah. It doesn't look like it'll be 6 months or perhaps even a year. It might be longer than that because of the way that the schedules are going. It's shockingly difficult to put something into space. There's a lot of people who want to go to space and put stuff up there. But I mean, we do have an awesome relationship with CASIS. We're just trying to like lock down that schedule so that we can share it with everybody. But it can be rather cumbersome to actually, cross all those T's and dot those I's when there's so many parties involved.
Yeah, the Vascular Tissue Challenge is, of course, also a very cool subject, like you just said. Maybe it would be nice to have another Dogelon space about specifically the tissue challenge. What do you say?
Oh, that would be fantastic. There's actually a lot of interesting stuff that we're doing around human tissue. So I think we actually, what was it, just last week, we did a workshop with some folks pretty high up at different institutions on developing roadmaps, competency level roadmaps for biomedical engineered patient trials. It's basically the rough equivalent is if some people call it like a patient on a chip or tissue on a chip. Basically a way of taking small pieces of organs, engineered organs, not like from somebody, but grown or 3D printed organs, and then you're able to do drug discovery with them. You're able to test drugs on small parts of totally legit human tissue so that you're able to rapidly speed up drug development and validation. For me, I mean, for us, I mean, we've been kind of working on the precursors to this project for about a decade. It takes forever to bring a drug to market, and it costs an obscene amount to bring to market. And, just there's so much waste and inefficiency, and people are literally dying along the way. It's an unbelievably, shockingly inefficient, nasty process. And so we've been trying to get more and more scientists to do that good work. And so we're working on doing some more stuff with that, which is, again, it's a follow-on to the work that we did with the Vascular Tissue Challenge. So we're basically working to lay the groundwork and the structure for what's going to be something like the sequel to that prize. But yeah, happy to come back and talk about that more.
Yeah, that really sounds amazing as well. And just to get back on the Deep Space Food Challenge, because I'm sure we could talk about that for another 40 minutes for sure, is how do you think that efficient food systems that produce nutritious and delicious food will change the game for future long duration missions?
Yeah, well, so they're absolutely necessary. I mentioned before, so the current paradigm of shelf stable foods is just simply not viable. I think the estimates were that and it sounds crazy, but the estimates were that for a crew of 4, they would have to produce 12 tons, if I remember correctly, 12 tons of food, which is of course extremely massive and like a real pain to put into space. So they were going to have to likely to send that ahead of the astronauts, so that by the time the food is produced and then it's shipped and then the astronauts arrive, by the time they get there, the food's already like 2 years old. And because of the way things work in space, radiation makes the nutrients degrade at a faster rate. And so you end up in a situation where like you can be an astronaut and you can end up getting scurvy because of a lack of vitamin C, that sort of thing. It's like a really dangerous situation to end up in. And so it's absolutely necessary to move towards in situ food production, which basically means you're doing it right there. So instead of bringing all the food with you, like it's a giant pantry full of like energy bars or something, or like MREs, like if you're in the Army or something, it's you're growing all the food actually in the craft, or when you land, it's all actually there available for you. So you end up with as much fresh food as you can possibly get, right? So whether it's fruits and vegetables, which is easy to imagine, but it's also even using alternative protein sources like insects or processed insects to end up with protein powders, or it's 3D printed actual tissue, like actually 3D printed meat, or cell cultured meat, or even cell cultured vegetables and fruit. There was actually one team from phase 1 that did some really, really cool work with cell culture fruit. So, so I think because of the nature of the challenge, because it is so incredibly difficult and everything has to be so incredibly efficient, the techniques that we use back on Earth, which just seem kind of obvious because you have loads of sunlight and all sorts of good stuff like that, don't really work. That you can't bring a cow with you to space because it's really, really, really heavy. It's hugely inefficient. So all of that stuff has to be completely rethought, completely redone, pretty much. And so, yeah, if you're able to do it up there and you're able to do it with that kind of efficiency, with that amount of scarcity, amazing technology is going to come out of it. And so, absolutely necessary for space, but that technology is going to come back down to Earth and help out local communities too.
Would you be able to give us some historical perspective on how space exploration will help drive food innovation for the rest of us here on Earth?
Yeah, sure. I think you can also pull back probably a little bit more broadly and even look at just exploration in general and how important food food sourcing is for the exploration process. So if you look back to the one good example, because it's not too far back, is in the middle of the early 1800s to the middle of the 1800s. A lot of things. Or mid to late 1800s. I'm sorry. A lot of things changed when it came to food preservation. So there was a guy named Nicolas Appert who was a French confectioner right around the time that during the French Revolution. This is right before Napoleon came to power. So some people might know the phrase "an army marches on its stomach," which is attributed to Napoleon, but he didn't say it. But anyway, but that was kind of the thing at the time where they were realizing that, oh man, they've got all these people who are, they're trying to fight the people in charge at the time, but they didn't have enough food. They were really worried about supply chain issues and that sort of thing. And so they created what was called the Food Preservation Prize, which Nicolas Appert eventually won because he invented or arguably invented or standardized food bottling, which was used somewhat at the time, but maybe he did the more scientific version where he would heat it to a very specific temperature, and then you would hermetically seal it. So he did that, and then through one thing or another, the British got their hands on it. I think the story goes that either they stole it or another French fellow actually, or even Nicholas himself kind of accidentally lost it to them or tried to sell it and it didn't go right, and I don't know. But anyway, that's where the canning came from, tin canning, and a lot of that is what enabled the maritime exploration of the time, and that in turn is what enabled the ice trade, I guess you could say. So before then, if you lived in a cold area, you would keep ice in a, I'm trying to remember the exact name of it, but I think it was literally called an ice box, but it was basically like an ice shed. It was essentially a shed where you would keep ice all year round, so that you could keep your food cold, because there was no such thing as a refrigerator. But if you lived in an area where that was not a thing, it was very expensive and difficult for ice to get to you, or you had to use like more traditional curing sorts of things, which removed a lot of variety from your diet and required you to eat a lot more salt than maybe you should. But because of that maritime boom, it enabled a global ice trade. And so maybe a lot of people don't actually know this, but a huge amount of stuff was going on in the 1800s, literally taking ice from one place and then bringing it to someplace else, which is really, really crazy. And so because of that, and then of course what happened later with Pasteur at that time, a little bit later, you saw life expectancy go parabolic. Hockey sticked. Life expectancy went up like crazy. So did intelligence. So you could argue that there was already like a radical shift in of longevity in your average person, simply just because of food preservation, right? And so that then leads to what happened with it possible for astronauts to be out there, and most of that was all around food preservation, making shelf-stable foods, irradiated, shelf-stable foods that could then just be heated up by water perfusion and different things like that. There was non-traditional ways of reconstituting food and that sort of thing. Everyone knows about dehydrated, space ice cream, right? Like that was stuff that they came up with. I think they came up with Tang, like different things, all sorts of cool stuff. I think infant formula was because of the program as well. So amazing stuff happened. But the interesting thing is that now, like I said before, is that paradigm of preservation as your primary means of ensuring that you have enough food is going to be breaking down. It's not going to be working quite as well for those future missions. And so you've got to go into in situ food production. And it's cool for me to see that, because that really is it's kind of a way of like, you're not kicking the can down the road anymore. You're having to actually really look at what those production problems are. And when you can do that, then you're dealing with a much more interesting problem, which is how do you then scale that highly efficient food production system across the world, so you can end up with a far more decentralized food supply. So you're not relying on trucks taking food from here to there all the time, but you're growing most of the food locally for your communities in a really, really efficient way with just as much novelty as you might expect before. So, yeah, it's amazing to see what's happening. A lot of that's because of necessity is the mother of invention, right? And exploration is just by definition you're going into places where you're kind of not prepared for it. It's just they're scarce, dangerous environments, and so since we're sending humans from here to there and not just robots, you got to keep the humans alive and as happy as possible, or else the mission fails.
So this program really has a major impact globally already, right, from NASA. And what I'm hearing right now with the new types of contests that they do Space Food Challenge, that eventually the impact on the planet will be immense as well.
Yeah,
Right, we're going into a new era, not just for space exploration, but also just globally right now.
yeah, I think that's the case. I think that especially when you think about the different people that are involved in the challenge right now, regardless of whether or not they end up winning the challenge, because there are always going to be down selects. But these people they're doing amazing work, and they're gonna take the work that they did for this challenge and they're gonna adapt it for other things. There's definitely no shortage of amazing ideas and talent and expertise within this community. And, I'm very, very confident that these guys are going to change the world, whether it's specifically within this challenge proper or whatever they do afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really really amazing. And I'm just wondering, right? What could the Dogelon Mars community do to assist this process?
Well, it's I don't know. You guys are amazing. You guys are really good at memes, and you guys are just awfully nice people. If anybody knows people who are interested in participating in one way or the other, or they're interested in helping to, one of the most important things really for the competitors is financial backing. So for those who are able to support teams, either because they know somebody who's an investor or whatever it is, the more that the teams have financial backing, the easier it is for them to actually build prototypes, because it's a lot harder to build a prototype than it is to do a design challenge. So that's what was going on in phase one. But now it's much more expensive for teams to actually participate. So we haven't really had anybody drop out yet. I think there was actually just one team ended up dropping out, it looks like, just because they had personal issues or whatever. But so pretty much everybody is still on board, which is really fantastic to see. But as the thing goes along, it can become challenging. So we don't have at this moment, I believe, a direct way for financial support, but it's something that we're working on establishing. So if it's something that is of interest to the community, I would love to hear about that so we can figure out the right way to structure it. So yeah, maybe we can talk offline or whatever it is. But so mainly that, and then especially for the international teams, because I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the federal government, of course, can't give financial awards to people who aren't citizens or permanent residents. And so the international prize is essentially, it's up to Methuselah Foundation to fund any awards that come out of it. And so that ends up being a little bit of a burden, just because we want to put most of our money into direct aging research. We do, of course, whatever we can, but it would be really, really fantastic to have some funding partners, whether it's corporate or VC, whatever it is, to help in particular the international teams along, both with funding and with in-kind support. Like if you think the equivalent of like Y Combinator or something like that, like a accelerator or incubators. We'd love to be able to put those international teams in particular in touch with local partners that can help fund them and provide them, lab space and other resources, that kind of thing.
So if a Dogelon Mars community member, Holdler, or warrior right now is listening and has an idea or a suggestion regarding this, you can just shoot me or Dane a DM and we'll get you in touch. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it'd be great to actually collect all of that in one place, and then we can see what we can enact.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So currently, I don't have any questions right now anymore. Maybe some of the other co-hosts have a question. Lestier?
No, not really. It's highly interesting, and it's all pretty clear for now.
By the way,
Crypto
I can't.
Brown?
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Dane. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, if anybody was talking, I can't hear them, so I don't know. Something weird's going on. Should I drop out and come back in case there's something funky happening?
Yeah, maybe it's just Lestier. I was just going to Crypto Brown. If you hear Crypto Brown in a minute, then it's just
Yes,
Lestier.
I can hear.
Okay.
I can hear you, Crypto Brown. Can you hear Crypto
Dane, can
Brown?
you hear me?
I don't think so.
Dane.
No, he can't hear you. So
Okay, let me.
that's quite interesting. The Twitter app.
Okay, I'll drop out and come right back.
All right, no problem. We'll wait.
Okay, 1 sec.
So that's all very wildly interesting to me. That was really quick, Dane.
Works.
Welcome back, Dane.
I think he can still hear anybody but me, right?
Yeah, it looks like I can just hear you. It's really weird.
Should I just sign out and come back in?
No, I think it's just Dane. Because I can hear you guys
Yeah,
properly, you guys hear everybody properly. I think it's just his setup for some reason. So anyway, I will just repeat the questions that they have. So Crypto Brown, go ahead. Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Charlene?
No, no questions at this time. Everything sounds really, really interesting and wonderful.
All right, thank you. So Dane, the co-host, don't have any questions right now for you. I don't know if you want to stick around for questions from the audience, but normally we would go into the different sections that we have,
sure. I can.
like the
hang.
news.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry. Yeah,
we have.
I can. Oh, I can hang for like 15 minutes. I have to get back to my my little girl, but I got 15 minutes.
Okay, well then in that case, if you have any questions for Dane, this is the time to request for speaker, and yeah, then I'll repeat the question so he can hear you. If you have another question for him, just stick around for a little while. We still have 2 other sections to get through. So crypto in general, go ahead.
Hey, Dave. It's good to see you back again. I'm trying to run away from my kids. They're making so much noise. Yeah. So I heard you were talking about teams that were on the food challenge that needed some kind of financial assistance. And some sort of sponsorship. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, sounds fun over there. It sounds like my house.
I know. Yeah. So a group of us on Twitter in this community are kind of like coming together, you know, to sort of raise funds to kind of like, help with charity work. And we're kind of actually thinking about having you or Methuselah Foundation as some kind of a medium where everybody can trust and say, hey, we all send Dogelon contributions to this so and so wallet that Dave or Methuselah Foundation holds, and they will go ahead and donate to a charity
of our choosing. So
Yeah.
that's why I was asking a question. I thought I heard you say something about some teams are kind of like, need financial assistance, and it's all in the collective good of the space exploration and the food challenge. So we would definitely would like to, get a hold of you. I think it's Dogelon, Mr. Dogelon Mars. I don't know if he's in here, but he held spaces. I think was it yesterday or the other day. I wasn't able to attend. So we will talk to him, and we'll get together. And as things get moving along, we will contact you, and hopefully, get to help to find out some of these people, so our name gets out there some more.
Yeah.
To say that, hey, we also helping this other team or that other company or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's really cool too, because the I would say, like, probably especially around the May time frame might be perfect for something like that, because that's when we're going to know exactly who the who the final teams are for phase 2. Not the semifinalists, but there's going to be an initial kind of very, very short kind of down select in May, in which teams are going to need not a huge amount of funding, but there's going to be a fair number of international teams, probably 10 international teams, who will need roughly 20,000 each. That's more or less, that's kind of what it's looking like. It's not 100% clear yet, because we don't know exactly what the competition is going to end up looking like. We'll know pretty soon, though. So yeah, definitely, please keep me in the loop. I would love to set up a structure that would work for everybody, and of course be totally transparent, and so that people can support the teams, the international teams. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Just to clarify, did you mean $20,000?
Yeah, well, so what we're trying to do is to match what NASA is doing. So they're going to give their teams 20,000 each, and so we would like to do the same thing for the international teams.
Awesome. Our team will get together and we'll start working towards a goal. We will raise the funds first, and then, like you said, during May or anywhere from now to May, we'll keep in touch with you and we'll go from there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and whatever I can do to help out, and if we're able to talk, along the way, and coordinate any kind of fundraising efforts, then yeah, that would be awesome. Should make it a lot easier. Just make sure we're all aligned in terms of narrative and everything. It just makes stuff easier. Yeah, cool, man. Thank you so much.
All right, Krypton. That was the question you had, or do you have more?
Was that?
Do you have more questions?
For now, no.
All right, thank you very much. Dogelon Millionaire, go ahead.
Thank you, Dogelon Warrior. My question is for Dan Gobel. I was wondering, do you know? Because last time I remember you were in the space, I remember you saying something about you guys are in contact with the developers of the Elon of the Dogelon Mars team, and I was just wondering, do you think they would be down for like a Q&A, a Q&A with the community, and also? Do you know if they have any? What are their plans for future? What are their plans to entice future investors to join the community? If you can shed any light on that, I think that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I honestly wish I could, man. I wish I could. I can't speak for them though, so it's going to be a total, almost entirely non-answer. But maybe other people here know something and they can pipe up. But I really hesitate to speak on their behalf. They're good people, though.
All right,
they're really good people, though, and very, very, very smart and well connected. I will tell you that.
All right, thank you. No problem. That's pretty much all I had to say. Thanks, Dan.
Cool. Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I had a question.
Hey, what's up?
Alrighty, so Mr. Gobel, I thank you for your time, by the way. Question I have for you is, do you have any information on further projects via Dogelon Mars and its developmental team? Can we expect anything huge in the future in terms of longevity and let's see an increase in the holders. Do you
Yeah.
see anything with future projects?
So again, like I wish I could share what their roadmap is, but they definitely have a lot of cool stuff in the works.
Is there anything else in terms of time you could give us next year? Anything you're able to, at your own disposal, give to us in terms of information?
Yeah, it's I can't really officially say anything, but the timeline is not in the far future. That's for sure.
I appreciate you very much, sir.
It's not
Thank
like
you.
that. Yeah, you bet.
All right, thank you very much, Alpaz. So, go ahead. I cannot pronounce your name, so go ahead.
Yeah.
So, Mr. with the Arabic name, you can go ahead if you want.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
I'm Hadi Sorhajam. I'm from Iran. I'm holder of the Dogelon. And what is your idea about Dogelon and, for example, the price of it?
very good. فامیلی همه
I didn't understand your question.
I'm saying, what is your idea about Dogelon?
My idea? I like.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I love Dogelon Mars. It's awesome. You guys are an incredible community, and we're just really happy to be partnering with you to try to do really, really good stuff in longevity and space research.
What? I can't understand what you say.
So I think that refers back to the mission token statement, right, Dane?
Yeah.
I could look that up.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
And mention it. While I do that, let's move on to Mr. Dogelon Mars there. Go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gents. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, awesome. How you doing, Mr. Dane Gobel? Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Hey, how's it going?
It's awesome. Good, thank you. So, just real quick, I'll keep it short. I've been doing my little bit of research, due diligence, and I saw on the Wikipedia, right? I was doing just Google search, see what I scooped up, because right now, like you said, the developers are really anonymous, really mysterious. So I've been trying to connect my dots in my own time, and I want you to see if you could confirm, right? So it's on the Wikipedia. In 2006, Peter Thiel donated 3.5 million to the Methuselah Foundation. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes, that sounds right. I can't remember the exact figure off the top of my head, but yeah, it's definitely within that realm.
Right. So, would you say that Peter Thiel still has, keep in touch with you guys, or you guys still have a, some type of connection or talks, till this day?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I just wanted to confirm that, as well as the Pineapple Fund. They donated to you guys as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right, no worries. That's all I had. To be honest, I just like I said, I've been doing my due diligence and doing a little bit of research here and there. I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you so much, sir, for your time, and thank you to everybody here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right, so I found the mission statement, so I'm just going to read that up. So bear with me for a little while. A token whose community is consolidated and solidified by and around an ultimate mission. A mission token directs its development, messaging, and infrastructure investments toward accomplishing that ultimate mission. The mission is lofty by any standards and includes more than just creation of wealth and riches. The mission is ultimate because it aims to innovate and change humanity for the better. In the case of Dogelon Mars holders and developers, in collaboration with Methuselah Foundation, the ultimate mission elevates humanity into a species that's able to conquer extra, inter, and interplanetary problems with technology and execution of brilliant ideas by audacious individuals and entities. As such, the ultimate goal is to reduce human suffering and extend a healthy human lifespan while advancing humanity's adventure on Earth and in space with the enthusiastic support of the rapidly growing Elon community. So that answers the question for the man with the Arabic name.
Very well said.
Thank you. So we don't have any other speakers right now, so I'm just assuming that there are no other questions right now for you, Dane.
Okay.
I know you need to get your daughter, so we'll let you go. Thank you very much for your time on the space again. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for all the information, and I hope to speak to you soon about the Vascular Challenge.
Cool, for sure. I'd love to do it. Thank you so much for having me on, and thanks so much for listening to me yammer for the last hour or so, guys. You're awesome.
Right, thank you. So let's move on to our next section. We have a new section, by the way, guys. It's called the educational section. We're looking for a better name for it, though. But you guys probably saw already another speaker that you guys didn't recognize. His name is TSTN. It's probably short for testing or something. I don't know. He never told me. So, would you like to introduce yourself, TSTN?
Hello. Yeah, I'm TSTN, as seen on Telegram. And I'm really happy to be in the space today. Thanks a lot for having me. I've been a day one holder, and
so I'm not sure what happened. What happened there?
Excuse me, what's that?
Glass tier. Did it cut out for you, the sound? Because for me, it was all of a sudden silence.
Yes, it cut out for me as well.
Too. It cut out for me too.
Could you please repeat what you were saying, TSTN?
Hello? Hello?
TSTN, can you hear us?
I do now. It looked like my signal cut out, just really bad timing, but it's full. All the bars are going now.
Yeah, you cut out at where you said that you were a holder at day one.
Okay.
And everything went blank after.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So I've been a holder since day one, and then in July or so was when I became an admin, just from having been active in the community for a long time at that point. And today I want to talk about burns because there seem to be a lot of misconceptions going around in, well, not just our community, but all communities of crypto, and especially in meme coins. People get really excited about burns, and it's a common marketing gimmick. So I wanted to go into some of the details of how burns work and why people do them and why they don't, and why what Dogelon has been doing all along has been really good. First thing I'd like to address is what exactly happens when you have a burn. So the tokens being burned get sent to a burn wallet, and they just stay in there. So nothing else really happens other than these tokens can no longer be sold. And it's actually identical to just holding on to your tokens and never selling them. And the one other thing that happens is you'll see on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, you'll see available supply will change. And that doesn't actually have any direct impact on price or how the liquidity pool works or how the exchanges sell or anything like that. It's just a number to show like that these tokens have been burned. The main thing about that is you're really actually looking into what effect does that change in supply have in the future, because nothing's happening with price right then. So only if it actually prevents people from being able to sell at some point, like because they didn't burn the tokens, they're still in their wallet, so they might sell them someday. Only if they were going to sell is there even any impact from that burn. So it's not the like saving grace that everybody expects, because the only thing that's going to bring your price up is people buying more than selling. And that's the bottom line, whether you have burns or not. Let's talk about the most common types of token burns. And the most common one you always hear about is on the swap transactions on the decentralized exchanges, those tend to be, 3 to 5%, or sometimes even larger, like coins like SafeMoon and things do this. And the burn takes a little bit out of each buy or sell, depending on how they've implemented it. And that is nice as far as having a deflationary effect on the supply. It means the person buying the tokens didn't get the tokens, so they're not going to sell the tokens, and they had to pay an extra price to get in. But it's actually a really bad idea to do this if you want your token to succeed. And that is because what is actually more valuable to your token's price in the long term is having high liquidity and attracting whales, and having many people be able to trade your token as easily as possible with the lowest amount of friction and getting the best price with no tax. And you already see that Dogelon Mars is one of the most traded coins on all of Ethereum, and perhaps someday on many of the other blockchains as well. And it's also very popular with whales. So that is a major reason to not have those transaction taxes. I just thought I'd check in. Are you guys still able to hear me? It was a little scary when we dropped out in the beginning there.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
If you don't mind. Now, I couldn't hear earlier, but now when you were saying about the burn is happening when people buy, correct?
Well, I'm not talking about what's happening with Dogelon right now. I'm talking about burns in general. Like, why do some tokens do that?
Right.
Now, it's a side topic that I could get into later, but Dogelon does have the phenomenon where the Uniswap fee, which is taken out of the purchases on Uniswap, goes into the locked liquidity. And that's not exactly a burn, but it's similar. And that is a unique thing to Dogelon, because it has this huge locked liquidity pool, which means almost all of that Uniswap fee gets locked forever. But that's a very nuanced topic, so I didn't actually want to address that, because I'm talking about like the just direct burns that what everybody's talking about when they say burn 99% of the time.
No, right. No, I wasn't on Dogelon Mars topic. I was talking about in general what you were speaking about.
Yeah.
And other tokens.
So yes, yeah, it does happen. If on tokens that have that tax, you're required to set a higher slippage when you do your buy on a decentralized exchange, and then the tax is used to take some of the tokens and burn them. So that's how those work.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, you're welcome. And I will continue on, and I will talk a little bit more about some of what other tokens do in a little bit. But beforehand, I wanted to mention about, another popular form of burning besides the burning on swaps is tokens do a big burn when they launch their token. They'll say, oh, we created this supply and then we burned this amount at launch. And like, that's totally pointless, because you could have just created a lower supply. So there's really no impact at all from that. Then another somewhat common you see once in a while is a token will say the devs decided to burn some chunk of their holdings. And if you have a token where the devs are holding some really massive amount of coins and they're able to burn some of their tokens, it's good if they were going to sell them someday. Now they won't. But again, there's no like direct impact on price. So usually when they do that, it's because their token is suffering and they need something to like get people to get back into it, or it's kind of a show of good faith, like, hey, save our sinking ship. We're going to burn some of our tokens, so please come back to us or stick around. But that sort of thing doesn't make sense for Dogelon Mars, because they don't have a bunch of dev tokens. They never had a dev allotment. Everything was purchased off of Uniswap. Next thing I wanted to mention was about the Methuselah Foundation and whether they should burn their tokens. And I think many of you have heard the answer to this one before. And of course, we are really grateful and lucky to have our partnership with them. And the people and good PR and advertising that's going to come to the token by having this partnership with them is going to raise the price far more than like taking away their inability to sell, when they actually aren't going to be divesting their tokens at any rate that's going to like drag down our token. They've already promised to steward it responsibly, and I have full confidence that they will, as they're an extremely respectable organization. So it's best the more tokens they have, the longer they can take to divest them, and the longer we can have this mutually beneficial relationship. So it's really great that they've got those tokens there. And who knows, they may not ever sell any. They may have some creative staking or something else to do with them. So next topic was, I wanted to talk about Shiba a little bit, because everybody says, well, what about Shiba? Shiba did burns, and of course, we all know Shiba and Dogecoin are the like gold standard for meme coins, and they've been really successful. And so the first thing to know about Shiba is it was not burns that propelled them to their all-time high. The only burns they are doing right now is on some of their Shiboshi NFT sales, or not sales, but when they rename the NFT, they burn a few tokens. And there aren't enough of these NFTs being renamed at all right now for those burns to be anywhere near an amount that you're going to see like affecting their chart. Like, it's so negligible. Their chart would be almost identical had those burns not taken place. And that also happened, after their all-time high was when that began. So that has nothing to do with their success. And then the other thing that Shiba did burn-wise was some of the Vitalik tokens that he got in the beginning, unlike ours, where they all went to the Methuselah Foundation when that donation happened from Vitalik. For Shiba, they burned a good chunk of those, which is fine, but those weren't being circulated and they weren't on the market, so it didn't affect the price anyway. So we're essentially, with Dogelon Mars, we're in the same situation that Shiba was right now, as far as like tokenomically, we have every ability to hit an all-time high just like theirs without doing any burns. So I just wanted to clear that up and let people have more confidence that we are really in a good position to be successful. And, you can look at the top 10, 20, 30, whatever tokens out there and look into which ones do burns and how much do they burn. And you're not going to find like some huge correlation between burns and success. So it's largely a gimmick. It's overhyped. One other thing I forgot to mention as well is that the exchanges don't like it if you have those burn on transactions, what we were talking about earlier, when you do a swap and you pay an extra tax. Exchanges don't like that because the contract enforces it, and it means anytime they need to swap for their market makers and stuff, they have to deal with the tax and factor that into their algorithms and accounting, and it just complicates things for them. They are whales basically, so they like that no tax, high liquidity sort of the situation. Okay, I'll try and sum this up. Is it good that Dogelon has not burned tokens so far? Yes, I think that's been a big part of why it's been so successful. Let's see. And do you need a token burn for a coin to be really successful? Absolutely not. And then lastly, could Dogelon burn something in the future some way and receive some benefit from it? And I mean, obviously people burning their own tokens prevents them from selling. So there's that. But then the other thing is, yes, it is possible with something new coming online, like NFTs or with the staking or something. If they implement something where money's flowing in for some, like what Shiba does with the name changes on their NFTs, like if you have money flowing in and it's not going to interfere with how the swaps happen, and it's not, obviously you don't want, your holders aren't going to like volunteer to burn all their coins. So if you do something like that, then yeah, you could have some positive impact from burns, but it's absolutely not necessary. And as we see with Shiba right now, it doesn't always pay off so great anyway. But yeah, I think that's about it.